A Yakuza member unknowingly kills an NGO worker, committing the biggest mistake of his life. The victim was the sister of a deadly soldier who had just returned from a brutal war. Having already lost his comrades in battle, the soldier would soon unleash his fury on the Yakuza. This tragedy began days earlier when John, an ex-Marine, was drowning in depression after losing his comrades. Consumed by grief and suicidal thoughts, he devised a deadly game. He placed whiskey in 3 glasses, one normal, one with a single bullet, and one with 2 bullets. As he counted the names of his fallen brothers, his count ended on the glass with 2 bullets. After drinking the whiskey, John loaded the bullets into his revolver and pulled the trigger. Death seemed to be taking a holiday. The gun misfired. John spent the rest of the day drinking until his alcohol ran out, forcing him to venture to the store. While browsing the shelves, 2 armed thieves burst in. One pointed a gun at John's stomach. Without fear, John calmly advised, "That's poor technique. You should aim for the chest or head." In one swift motion, he disarmed the thief and demonstrated proper targeting before killing both criminals. The violence triggered flashbacks. War memories flooded John's mind like a drowning tide. That night, sleep was impossible. An invisible weight crushed his chest. Desperate to escape the memories, he threw himself into brutal training, but the ghosts remained. Rage consumed him as he punched walls until his knuckles bled. Morning arrived, but John wasn't ready to face it. Still hungover and barely able to stand, he heard a knock at the door. His sister Cindy stood outside. He had forgotten to pick her up from the airport. Unsurprised by his absence, she had come herself. Cindy explained she was attending a friend's wedding before returning to Brazil, where she worked in dangerous areas doing charity work. Though John disapproved, arguing with his stubborn sister was pointless. Before leaving, Cindy checked John's medication, pills meant to treat his mental condition. She discovered he had replaced them with chewing gum. Shaking her head in disappointment, she left. For a few days, everything returned to normal. Days later, Brazilian officers Catarina and Polo discovered Cindy's battered body near the beach. She had been brutally attacked and was in critical condition.
She's alive. Call an ambulance now!
The news spread rapidly through international headlines. An American NGO worker assaulted in Rio de Janeiro. John received the devastating news and immediately boarded the first flight to Brazil without informing anyone. Meanwhile, officers Tiago Santo and his partner Carlo Barraro were investigating armed smugglers in the favelas when Catarina and Paulo approached them. Catarina confronted Santo about his excessive violence, criticizing his brutal methods against the smugglers. Santo didn't tolerate criticism. Instead of explaining himself, he intimidated Catarina, declaring that her softness was responsible for rising crime rates that nearly cost an American citizen her life. Before he could finish his speech, a local resident hurled a stone at Santo. Both sides immediately drew weapons, transforming the area into a battlefield. Realizing they were outnumbered, Santo stepped back and proposed a challenge. The locals should send their strongest fighter to face his partner in single combat.
Your best fighter against mine.
The locals chose Cabo, their most formidable fighter, to face Barraro. Santo announced the terms. If Barraro lost, the police would retreat without making arrests. The fight was brief. Barraro, displaying overwhelming strength, delivered a devastating blow that knocked Cabo unconscious. The crowd fell silent. Santo erupted in laughter, taunting the locals that he and his men could return whenever they pleased. As the officers departed, the residents watched with burning hatred in their eyes, as if witnessing a grave injustice. Santo remained indifferent, focused solely on his ruthless approach to law enforcement. Upon reaching Brazil, John was met by American Ambassador Manny Ridley, an old friend and fellow ex-soldier who had fought alongside him in numerous battles. Together, they went to the hospital, where John found Cindy in a coma. The sight shattered him. As he stared at his unconscious sister, horrific war memories flooded back. Endless corpses, blood-soaked sand, and the deafening chaos of gunfire, followed by the terrible silence of death. Santo arrived at the hospital and briefed John about the favelas, describing them as criminal strongholds where dangerous gangs operated freely. Manny introduced Santo as the lead detective on the case and urged John to remain calm. Knowing his friend's volatile nature, Santo, impatient and blunt, warned John that the favelas weren't tourist destinations. Later, Santo and John ventured into the favelas together. During the journey, Santo cynically remarked that the children there would become the next generation of criminals. John felt surrounded by war, not just in active conflict zones, but everywhere he looked. Both men agreed on one bitter truth: the world had become unforgivably cruel. In the favelas, John reunited with Katerina. As she began speaking, a sudden gunshot rang out. John's combat instincts kicked in instantly. He drew Katerina's sidearm without hesitation. The sound turned out to be merely an old truck backfiring. Santo observed John's reaction carefully, and Katerina warned him to keep a close eye on his American guest. After Santo left, Katerina revealed the harsh reality of favela life. The government provided no funding for schools or clinics. Drug cartels filled that void. In return, locals protected the cartels, knowing that without this arrangement, even their minimal security would disappear. John's eyes filled with profound sadness at this revelation. For Katerina, being a police officer meant walking a dangerous tightrope where one wrong step could destroy the entire community. Meanwhile, Cindy's condition suddenly deteriorated at the hospital. John rushed to find a nurse, then realized something was wrong. Minutes earlier, a woman in doctor's clothing had entered Cindy's room. She might have tampered with the life support machines, or attempted murder. Rage consumed John. He demanded 24-hour police protection for Cindy, and decided to investigate personally by returning to the favelas. In the favelas, John encountered a boy named Kuka, whom he had seen near the beach where Cindy was found. When John spotted Cindy's necklace around Kuka's neck, fury overtook him. He grabbed the boy and began interrogating him. Kuka and his friends attacked John, but they were no match for a trained soldier. The fight ended in seconds. Kuka desperately pulled a knife, but even that proved useless against John, who turned the weapon on the boy and threatened him for information about Cindy. The language barrier prevented Kuka from understanding John's demands, escalating the dangerous situation until Katerina arrived to intervene. Katerina explained that Cindy had developed a deep friendship with Kuka's family.
Cindy used to work with his sister, and she was killed a few days ago. Cindy gave him the necklace as a gift.
The necklace represented the bond between Cindy and Kuka's sister Maria. Katerina revealed that Maria had also been kidnapped, with no leads found. John apologized for his mistake. Grateful for the clarification, Kuka gave John Cindy's notebook, hoping it would help track down her attackers. Examining the notebook, John noticed torn pages, which worried him. However, he found a contact, a photographer Cindy had recently hired. John immediately called and arranged to meet at a cafe. The photographer revealed that Cindy had commissioned him to document the harsh lives of favela children, but that wasn't her only mission. She was investigating the disappearance of girls who worked the streets at night, suspecting she was in danger because of this investigation. Despite the risks, she continued her work fearlessly. The photographer explained that Cindy had asked him to photograph her meeting with an informant, and he had captured everything as requested. Overwhelmed with gratitude, John embraced the photographer for providing these crucial clues. During their embrace, John discreetly pocketed a flash drive from the photographer's jacket. As the photographer left the cafe and got into his car, a massive explosion erupted. The vehicle burst into flames, killing him instantly and injuring several bystanders. The blast triggered John's war memories, but through the chaos, he spotted the woman who had attempted to kill Cindy at the hospital. John pursued her immediately. As he rounded a corner, a black SUV screeched to a halt, and gunmen opened fire with automatic weapons. John dove behind parked cars as bullets shattered windows and concrete around him. A security guard was caught in the crossfire and killed. John grabbed the fallen guard's weapon and returned fire, eliminating several attackers before the survivors escaped in their vehicle. Later, John met with Ridley at his office, reporting the attack and describing the distinctive tattoos on the gunmen's hands. He suspected they were members of the Japanese underworld, noting that the woman he'd pursued also appeared to be Japanese. Examining the photographer's flash drive, they found images of Cindy meeting with a man outside a nightclub. Ridley immediately recognized the location and took John there.
What does that say? Kronos?
Kronos. Oh, that's a local nightclub. I know where that is.
At the club, John discreetly followed the man from the photograph into the restroom. He cornered him and demanded information about Cindy's attackers. Terrified, the man dropped important documents containing details about high-profile clients. Under John's threats, the man revealed his connection to those who had attacked Cindy, providing John and Ridley with their next target. The following day, John and Ridley approached a luxurious villa, a playground for the wealthy and powerful. Meanwhile, across the city, Santo prepared his unit for a brutal operation. He ordered his men to show no mercy and kill anyone who interfered. Before beginning, Santo knelt in prayer, a ritual he performed to maintain his psychological balance. When Santo's unit stormed the favelas, chaos erupted. His team didn't make arrests. They simply left bodies behind. John's arrival at the villa caused immediate alarm. A guard informed the Japanese woman who had tried to kill Cindy about his presence. She instructed her subordinate not to create problems for her boss, Hiramoto. John was escorted to a balcony where he witnessed a van arriving. Young girls were being unloaded from the vehicle. Among them, John recognized Kuka's missing sister, Maria. A guard moved to attack John from behind, but the battle-hardened soldier was ready for the assault. John overpowered the guard within moments, then began tracking the girls through the compound. Armed men patrolled everywhere, including Japanese Yakuza members he had previously encountered in the favelas. Meanwhile, Santo and his team continued their operation against drug cartels in the favelas. One of Santo's men spotted Yakuza forcing children into a car and moved to intervene. When Santo arrived, he publicly praised his officer's bravery, then shot him dead. The Yakuza were now free to operate. It became clear that Santo had orchestrated Cindy's attack and left her on the beach. Santo immediately called his superior, the same Japanese woman who had tried to kill Cindy. She assured him his payment awaited at the port. She then contacted her boss, Hiramoto, reporting that an American soldier was pursuing her and needed to be eliminated. During her conversation with Hiramoto, Lima, the nightclub informant from whom John had seized the documents, appeared before the crime lord. Lima knew he would pay for his betrayal. Hiramoto's rage was swift and lethal. He killed Lima instantly with his katana. Back at the villa, Hiramoto's men detected John's presence, but the veteran soldier eliminated 5 guards in rapid succession. As John prepared to finish his assault, Santo and Bararo arrived, intending to kill him for interfering with Yakuza operations. John demanded a briefcase from Santo, but the sound of gunfire attracted Katerina and her partner, disrupting Santo's plan. John led them to where the kidnapped girls should have been held, but the room was empty. The victims had already been moved. John explained that the briefcase contained crucial documents identifying the kidnappers and information about the missing girls. Under pressure, Santo agreed to John's demand for the briefcase, and John appeared to leave. As John departed, he realized Santo's prior knowledge was too extensive. Lima's name hadn't appeared anywhere in those documents, yet Santo knew about him. The corrupt officer was deeply involved in the trafficking operation. John instructed Katerina to rush to the hospital to check on Cindy, while he secretly hid in Santo's vehicle. Santo was heading to the port to collect his payment, the same location where the Yakuza planned to transport the girls to Japan. At the hospital, the Japanese assassin made another attempt on Cindy's life. Katerina arrived just in time, killing the would-be murderer before she could finish her mission. At the port, John witnessed Santo meeting with Yakuza operatives. The kidnapped girls were being loaded into shipping containers bound for Japan. With the full scope of the conspiracy now clear, John contacted Ridley and reported everything he had discovered. Ridley warned John not to confront them alone. Knowing his friend's stubborn nature meant the advice would be ignored. John had never listened to anyone, and this situation would be no different. Using his military training, John systematically eliminated Yakuza members one by one. Santo soon confronted him directly. During their fight, John dropped a forklift on Santo, trapping his leg beneath the heavy machinery. Bararo shot at John, but missed his mark. Abandoning his weapon, he tried to overpower John with bare hands, a fatal mistake against a trained soldier. John dominated the fight, forcing Bararo to his knees. Santo freed himself from the forklift and rejoined the battle, but even together, he and Bararo couldn't defeat John. Then, Hiramoto entered the fray, wielding his katana with deadly precision. The Yakuza boss managed to slash John's arm, forcing him to retreat momentarily. Now, John faced 3 opponents simultaneously. Santo attacked with a knife, but John redirected the blade, stabbing it into Bararo's leg. He then grabbed Santo's neck chain and drove it into his chest. Only Hiramoto remained. John picked up a steel pipe to counter the katana. The Yakuza leader proved a formidable opponent, his swordsmanship buying him precious time. Eventually, John managed to turn Hiramoto's own sword against him, seeming to gain the upper hand. Hiramoto revealed a hidden blade and plunged it into John's stomach. This treachery unleashed John's full fury. He brutally beat Hiramoto until the crime lord could barely stand. John approached the dying Santo, who was choking on his own blood. Realizing his end was near, Santo handed John a key that would unlock records of every corrupt official involved in the operation. He confessed to numerous crimes and murders, but denied killing Cindy. As Santo spoke, Hiramoto made one last desperate attack. This time, John showed no mercy. He shot the Yakuza boss dead. Santo's breathing grew labored. In a final act of compassion, John left him a gun, allowing the corrupt officer to choose his own end. Ridley and reinforcements arrived at the port. John freed all the kidnapped children, including Maria. Cindy survived her ordeal, but required extensive medical treatment for her injuries. The next day, Ridley made John an offer. He would cover all medical expenses and legal complications, but only if John agreed to work as an undercover operative under a new identity. Ridley knew this arrangement would also help John leave his troubled past behind. The human trafficking ring was dismantled, the corrupt officials exposed, and justice finally served. John had found his purpose again, not in war, but in protecting the innocent. If this story had you hooked from start to finish, smash that like button and subscribe for more epic movie breakdowns. Your support helps us bring you the best content.